Hello and welcome to the Midweek Mashed Tattie Sportscast. This is MMA Mash, the weekly mixed martial arts roundup that features all the latest news and reviews from the UFC, One Championship, Bellator, the PFL, and so much more. My name is, of course, Mick, and as always, I am joined at cage side by the man that's more question than answer, is Mr. Paul Kerr.
Yo! And
the ever-controversial Mr. Harvey A. Smith. How's it going, lads?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Do you know what we should do? I'm good, by the way. What we should totally do is have you come up with something controversial, even if it's totally made up.
Every week?
Every time I introduce you, you've just to come in with something straight off.
Just
that's
what
what
a controversial fact. Like, Doug's can't lock up. Here's your first one.
You see if there's facts, that's even better. Just random hilarious facts. But I'll take nonsense. Nonsense will do fine.
That's all we've got, man.
Oh, you don't want to hear the nonsense in my head.
Into the wild.
All that more to come. But for now,
the first thing that came to my head, by the way, was
again a random fact.
Classic.
I had the hangover when Alan when I talked about masturbating in the plane. So I'm pretty sure it's illegal. He's like, yeah, no, because of Bin Laden. Thanks, Bin Laden.
Thanks, Bin Laden.
Yeah, he's like, thanks, Bin Laden.
Oh, God. I forgot about that film.
Great. It's like the most random film quote that has been on this podcast so far.
Nah. There's another one for that film, by the way. What goes on in Vegas stays in Vegas. Except herpes. That shit follows you home. No, duh.
Oh, God.
Oh, dear.
So we'll cut this.
It's going one of the weeks. And without further ado, let's get it on. Okay, right. So, as per usual, we're going straight into recaps. So, we're kicking it off with PFL 5 for the 2022 season. That was June 24th, just at the weekend, just Friday night there for us. Over in Atlanta. Decent card. Mostly decisions, but there was a couple of finishes in there, most notably for us as Scots. Stevie Ray, Braveheart Stevie Ray, doing the unthinkable, the unimaginable, and submitting Anthony Pettis. Now, I had some amount of faith in Stevie that he could get past. I thought Stevie was going to win that fight because he's all heart, but I didn't think he was going to submit Anthony Pettis.
Okay. I remember you saying that he could do it, but you don't see him doing it. I mind you saying that.
Aye. Like, it's conceivable that he could catch him in something because Stevie is an underrated grappler, he really is. But Anthony Pettis is a very good grappler, and I thought and he's a wily veteran as well at this point. He's the older guy, he's 35, to Stevie's 32, so, and Pettis has been around for a while as well. So I thought if Stevie went after it enough, first or second round knockout was on the cards, and then like he had the potential to catch him in a submission. But I didn't give him enough credit, man. And he caught him in possibly a first for professional MMA. So have you both seen the fight, Paul? You said you had.
Yes.
Have you seen it?
I've seen the finish. I watched the finish.
Right.
So explain to me what the hell I saw though, because.
Right, okay, so it was a pretty back and forth competitive first round. They both had their chances, both landed good strikes, but fairly even. Second round, they got into a bit of grappling, and Stevie initially took the back of Anthony Pettis, and he locked in a body triangle, right? So his legs wrapped around Pettis, had the body triangle, and he had his right leg over him. His left leg then hooking to obviously complete the triangle, and he had his left leg then in between the legs of Pettis, right? And that was allowing him to control the movement of Pettis for like the hips down. After a few minutes of that, like 2 minutes, Pettis tried to turn in to Stevie, so then he would end up in Stevie's guard on top. But because Stevie had such a tight body lock with that sort of figure four with his legs, as well as the left leg being in between the legs of Pettis and being able to control Pettis' legs. When Pettis turned into him, his hips could only go so far, but Pettis, for reasons he obviously didn't think he was in danger, he continued to turn his upper body and he tried to just kind of muscle through. That then left him in a position where Stevie was able to reach across and lock up the right shoulder of Pettis and pull him further into him. And basically what he ended up with was a modified twister. So a twister is basically what he's doing is it's like a spinal submission. He's contorting the spine, but ultimately because of the modification and the way he had it, he was actually wrenching on the ribs of Pettis and crushing them as well, I think. And that's like seems to be the reason that Pettis is tapped. He's been in a lot of pain in his ribs. I don't know if there's any injuries there, but he seemed to be in a lot of pain directly after the fight. So like in a twister, for anybody that hasn't seen that before, it's a twister is like a slightly modified version of what would be called a guillotine in amateur wrestling. Effectively, your legs would go underneath your opponent's legs and you would lock up the opposite leg for the side that you're on. So that allows you to pull that leg in towards you, which turns your opponent's hips away from you. Then you would get your arm and shoulder over your opponent's arm and shoulder that's closest to you and lock up their head and pull that into you. So effectively, you're twisting them like you would, like if you were twisting a towel to like get the water out it. It's that sort of movement, and you're twisting and contorting the spine of your opponent. It's horrible, so it is. It's no comfortable at all. But it's very difficult to lock up. But Stevie actually said he did like a Facebook post after the fight, and he said that that's something that he's recently been working on and training, and he's been catching folk in it because nobody seems to realise they're in any danger. Like Pettis did, like turning in, didn't think there was any issue to that. He didn't think he was going to be at risk of getting caught in it. So it seems to be a high percentage thing for him. And how far ahead he was planning there, I don't know. I don't know if he was baiting Pettis into that submission, or if he just noticed that it was there and thought, amazing, I've been working on this. Ideal, I'll take this. I don't know, but nevertheless, man, fucking bravo. Great performance for him.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely.
That's him through.
That is him through. And the interesting thing is, as things stand, they'll go into the semis as Pettis is the number 1 seed and Stevie is number 4, meaning that their next matchup would be the two of them again in the semi-finals.
So it's a rematch straight away.
Straight away, aye. It'll be like in either end of July or start of August, I think. But it's no, when I last checked, let me actually just have a look now while we're recording. The last I looked, it wasn't confirmed that that's what the crack was. Wait till I see. It's still, right, so it's still listed as, they've all got an X next to them, the 4 that are qualified, and that just means that they're into the playoffs. They're qualified for the playoffs. The person in number 1, that's once they're confirmed that they're in number 1, they get a Y next to them to confirm that they're the number 1 seed. So I don't know if that means that there's still a fight to go there. There is a couple of guys that have only had 1 fight, but they're listed with an E next to them, meaning eliminated. So in theory, there isn't any fights left. So I don't know. I can't confirm that is the next fight, but as it stands, that's how the seeding plays out. So that is the next fight as it stands. So we'll cover that in a few weeks once it's actually announced. But kind of interesting that they go into like directly into a rematch straight away.
Would this be considered his biggest scalp to date?
It's
fighter?
arguable. It's right up there with Michael Johnson. He beat Michael Johnson in either his last fight in the UFC or his second last. I can't quite remember. I think it was his last fight in the UFC.
That was in a fight night, wasn't it?
Aye. So that was Michael Johnson was like on an absolute tear at that point. He was looking like he was going towards a title shot within a short period of time, and Stevie beat him. So it's right up there. Pettis is a bigger name.
Aye, definitely has kind of name value. Obviously.
So if you look at it for that perspective, it's definitely the biggest name that he's beat. But in terms of biggest career winner, I suppose only Stevie can really answer that.
Aye,
it's massive for where he's at right now. Where he's like came out of retirement. His first fight, you saw the potential was still there. He still had it in him, but it was, maybe a bit of ring rust or whatever. He wasn't quite 100%. And he ended up he lost the decision there. He came close to stopping the guy in his first round fight there, but ultimately lost the decision. So he had it all today here, and big result for him, man.
2 fights for $1 million, effectively.
Aye, that's it.
I mean, that's awesome. That is storybook stuff.
And I've got to say, based on the fact that he's just beaten Pettis, this tournament is now very, very winnable for Stevie. Because I would have said, like, the two guys that would be in the other semi are good, and Alexander Martinez and Olivier Aubin Mercier. The two of them are very good, but I would have thought out of the guys in the tournament that Anthony Pettis would have been the hardest matchup for Stevie, just because of the styles. So, aye.
Fingers crossed for the guy, honestly.
Fingers crossed, man. And in like kind of 2.5, 3 months, we might see Stevie get crowned as a champ and get $1 million, which would be massive for him. I mean, he's like a really humble guy. He runs a gym. What's it? It's Braveheart MMA, I believe. And Bathgate or something.
Right.
Somewhere between Glasgow and Edinburgh. Not sure exactly. No, Fife.
I think he's born in Kirkcaldy, I think, wasn't he? I'm sure, if I remember correctly.
He's a Kirkcaldy guy.
He's Fife, kind of low.
Alright, higher level, that's what it is. So the gym that he trains at, the professional gym, high level MMA, that's Bathgate, I think.
Right.
No 100% sure where his gym is, but anyway.
Either way, still awesome.
Aye. Big up to him, man. It's
massive.
Epic. That money will go a long way for him and his team, so aye. Fingers crossed for him. Right, so in terms of the rest of the card, a couple of good finishes in undercard. We had Ryoji Kudo defeating Alejandro Flores. Massive knockout there.
Yes.
In the round 1. They call it, I've noticed in the PFL, they like to call that a quick 6. Because you get 6 points.
6 points, of course.
Get stoppage in the first round. So that's a quick 6. And then if you get stoppage in the second round, they were crying it like a fantastic 5 or something.
They're into their wee bit of rhyming and alliteration.
Aye. The PFL is so American, man. Like, it's like, it feels like you're watching an American TV program. If that makes, like, you know, like if you watch a sport, right, and it's a sport that does like multi-broadcasts, so you can watch the UK version, and then you might catch the US version one day for some reason, and the US version just seems like a caricature of the sport, like it's so over the top. The PFL compared to the UFC is ridiculous. in a good way. But
basketball to baseball.
Aye. Right, so then we also had the Mancunian Brendan Loughnane. He's from Manchester. He had a good performance, picked up a unanimous decision over Ago Huskic. He looks pretty good, man. Then the other big stoppage was Juan Adams defeating Sam Kay. No idea if I'm pronouncing these names right, by the way. That was a big TKO in round 2, so 5 points for him. That was cool. And then fight of the night. Sorry, Chris Wade defeating Kyle Bochniak. Big head kick there, followed up with punches. That was another quick 6. That was a round 1 stoppage. That was a good one as well, so check that out. And then fight of the night, probably main event. I don't know, like, well, Paul, you before the podcast, you were watching that main event,
weren't you? That, aye, Sheffield and Capalosa. Yep. What a chin Capalosa has. It's marking up summation. Wow.
He's
man.
He was the former champion, so he was.
You could see a champion's will in him, certainly.
He'd won the tournament last year, I believe it was. So that's a big scalp for Sheffield, and Sheffield looked good, man. Beat the shit out of him. But that Capolosa, man, he's a warrior for chin on him.
Aye.
But overall, man, I enjoyed it. That's the most I've enjoyed a PFL event, I've got to say. Usually it's because there's one or two people that I want to see and I'll kind of stick it on and through it, or I'll watch some highlights or something like that. But that's the first time I've sat and watched it properly. I quite enjoyed it, I must say. It's a totally different experience. I don't know, have I mentioned this before? I don't know if I have or not. Right, so for Paul and any wrestling fans that happen to be listening, the ring announcer for the PFL is Lillian Garcia, former
WWE
announcer for the WWE. And they also have, as a backstage guy, they have Jonathan Coachman for back in the day in the WWE as well.
He's going to love it, man.
They have him. He sits with a guy that's like a betting expert. They talk about like the odds for the fights and stuff like that.
Outstanding.
Very random, but it's kind of cool to see them as well.
Coach.
Anywho, moving along. Bellator 282. Did you catch any of that?
I'm afraid I didn't, too, Michael.
Didn't even know it was on.
Again, I'm sure we talked about it last week.
Probably.
We literally do a podcast about MMA. Come on, keep up. Oh, Christ. Right, so for Harvey and the listeners, Bellator 282 was in June 24th, so again Friday for us. No bad card. There was a few fun fights, and the most newsworthy would be the main event. Don't know if you've seen the result from this.
I have just caught myself up right now. That is quite a shock, certainly.
Gegard Mousasi dropped his middleweight title to Johnny Eblin, the guy who last week I was like, I don't know if I've seen him fight or no, I'm not sure. Don't know who he is.
You know what? That's a lie. I did actually see that.
Oh, did you see that?
I did that. Yeah.
Alright, okay. So, aye. Personally, I don't know if I agree with the decision. It's no egregious, right? You can see why Johnny Eblin won, right? It was a pretty dominant performance for him. It was a lot of wrestling, but the judges have gave scores of 50 to 45 across the board, so they've gave him every round. I don't agree with that. There was takedowns in every round, but based on now, something actually before the podcast, I was talking to you guys about how the head of the commission that was overseeing this had been talking to the fighters prior to the card taking place about their rules for the judges and how the judges their criteria for scoring the fight. And it differs slightly in the wording. It's the same general thing, but it differs slightly in the wording for the unified rules of MMA set out by the ABC. So I don't know if I agree with what's went on here or no. I don't know. It's hard to say. I was doing too many things at once when I was watching it, so I can't give a definitive score. I'd have to go back and sit and watch it in like a quiet room and properly score it to know. But I feel like there was at least a couple of rounds where Eblin wasn't doing enough beyond the takedowns to warrant him getting the decision, because Gegard Mousasi never stopped. Even when he was on the deck, he was striking for the bottom. And seemingly in both judging criteria, whether it's the unified rules or whether it's with this slightly different version that seems to have been in place here at the Mohegan Sun, it's sort of stipulated that the number one thing is effective striking and damage. That's number one above all else. And certainly in the unified rules, the way it works is that the judges will only score a round based on effective striking or effective grappling, and grappling's only noted as effective if there is continued effective striking in the grappling positions or threats of submissions that are close to finishing the fight and changing the direction of the fight. That would constitute effective grappling. So if one of the two things are in place, that's how the round is scored. If it's completely and utterly and unequivocally equal for both fighters on that criteria, then they move to the second criteria, which is in the unified rules, it's arena control. So ring, cage, whatever you're in, control of the fight area. So then the takedowns would come into it. Like, so if Johnny Eblin's the aggressor and he's getting takedowns and he's controlling where the fight's taking place, then that comes into it. But that shouldn't be part of the scoring as long as there's one person having more effective striking or grappling over the other person. And a lot of the time, in my eyes, I would have said Masasi was being the more effective way the striking, regardless of whether they were standing up or on the deck. So there's rounds in there that if you don't know what you're looking at, it looks very clear that Eblin's won the round because of the takedowns. But if you're aware of how the judges are supposed to be scoring it, it's actually a lot closer. I realise. So I think I'm going to go back and watch that at some point and see what I think.
Do you think in the long run this harms a promotion like Bellator to have two kind of wrestle fuck guys as champions? Respectfully towards wrestling.
It's they're not building superstars, I'll tell you that much.
Aye, does this hurt them? I mean, Masasi's obviously more of a star, as is Michael Finn and Page. Like,
well,
we've got
so
two.
the thing with Masasi, I would disagree there in a sense. Masasi's no a star, but what he is a name to anybody who's like an MMA nerd or like a diehard MMA fan or whatever.
Aye, he's like a kind of hipster MMA man. Like your man who's in the know loves Masasi. Like, aye. It's a good person to have as a champ.
He's an absolute legend. He's a better representative. 100%. He's a better representative than Eblin. Like Eblin's come out and said after that fight that there can be no question that he's the best in the world at middleweight now because he beat Masasi. I mean, no. No, you can't. No, you can't say that, mate. No. Respectfully, I disagree. But so it's no ideal for them. They, you know what I mean. But then it's Scott Coker's never really had the mindset of let's build superstars. He's always been about bring the younger guys through that have got talent and let's just have the best fighters that we can get. I can respect that, but in terms of a business model, it's not the best way to go. You need to build superstars to put bums in seats, as they say. And obviously, like they're losing Fedor, he's due to retire. I would say they're in a transitionary phase. Like, I mean, Masasi, even if he was still the champ, I don't know how much longer he'll fight. He's been in the game a long time. Don't know what his plans are.
Oh, he's been at a very long
MVP,
time. MVP,
he's a massive star, but he just keeps seeming to sort of fall at the last hurdle. So whether or no he ever actually wins a belt, I don't know. He's got all the potential in the world, but whether it happens or no, I don't know.
Again, time's against him, really. Like he's been my age. I mean, he's mid-30s.
Aye.
Late 30s.
He's young in MMA, but he's old in combat sports, sort of thing.
Yeah.
The Pitbull brothers, the two of them are aging on. You know what I mean? They I don't know how, and they've had some hellish fights, so I don't know how much longer the two of them fight. The lighter weights. Their man, their kind of homegrown star, what's his name? McKee. He's obviously in his rematch. In his. No, it wasn't a rematch because it was the younger brother. So in his first title defence, he's dropped the belt and got his first loss. So it doesn't mean that's the end for him. He can certainly rebound for that and still have a great career. But, you know, like there's question marks there now. He was supposed to be the big grown star. So, it's an interesting time for Bellator. You could certainly make an argument that they should concern themselves a wee bit more with building stars as well as fighters. Not so much building stars, building bigging up fighters that are going to be big names. So they want to have the best fighters they can get their hands on, but they also want to make sure that some of them are going to be, you know, like kind of known to the masses. There's a
household names.
That's the very one, Harvey. Household names. That is the very one.
Yeah.
Aye. Yes. So I don't know what they do, but I mean, nevertheless, I mean, no harm to Johnny Eblin. Like, he went in there and did what he needed to do. He worked with the skill set that he's got. He's a known grappler. He's a very good wrestler. That was known going into the fight. He's an ATT guy. I mean, he comes from a good team.
Styles make fights.
Aye.
As they say.
Aye. So we'll see. I'm very curious to see, if nothing else, if they do an immediate rematch there. So, I don't know, we'll see. Anyway, other than that, we had Brennan Ward picking up a win. He, I don't know if he's a member or not, but he had recently been going through rehab. He'd had some addiction issues. He'd sort of stepped away from the sport for a wee bit. So he had a big performance with big TKO win in round 2. I can't say he looked like how he did in his prime, but good performance for him nonetheless. Certainly, well, things considered. Big knockout from Alexander Shabley, I think you pronounce it like. He defeat Brent Primus. Again, round 2, big KO. Big win for him. Alpha Cat Singanu in the undercard, picking up a unanimous decision win over Pam Sorensen. No surprising in the slightest, but it's good to see her get a good win there. The sort of the will seems to be there for Bellator to build her up and get her in a fight with Cyborg. She's supposed to have fought her a couple of times before, and it's not happened for various reasons. So they're probably the two biggest names in the Bellator sort of women's division outside that Taekwondo lassie, Loreto, something like that. Valerie Loredo.
I know who you're talking about.
Aye. I'm not sure if that's her exact name, but it's along the lines. But anyway, yeah, she seems quite big in America. But aye, so Cyborg, that's another one. Like, I don't know how much longer Cyborg gonna
exactly.
keep going.
Probably the end of your
certainly know we're cutting weight and stuff. So probably makes sense to get that fight on the go sooner rather than later. And anything else you want to cover in Bellator there?
I think you've done a tremendous job yourself there, fella.
Aye.
As I say, there was a few random fun fights on there. It's just, if you're a casual fan or if you're just a UFC fan, like, there's no that many names there that you're going to know. The production is totally different for the UFC, similar to, it's no similar to PFL, but it's similar in the sense of it's a different experience for watching the UFC. Some people will be loving it, other people will be like, what is this shit? So each to their own. If you're an MMA fan, check it out. If you haven't before, if you're in the UK, you can get it on BBC iPlayer for free if you've got a TV license. Nudge, right. So it's easy to get a hold of nowadays, and more often than not, there's some good fights on there, and they do have a bunch of like ex-UFC guys and guys who have like sort of legendary status and stuff without ever been in the UFC kind of thing. Fedor being a notable example, absolute legend of MMA. Should in theory be fighting in the next 2 or 3 months. They're trying to put a sort of deal together to get him in his retirement fight. Waiting to see who it's going to be against. But aye, right, let's leave Bellator there and we'll move on to UFC Vegas 57. Have you seen a bit more of this?
Guess what part of the show I watched, Michael?
The undercard.
Main card! Main card!
I have seen fights, yes.
You have seen fights.
You've seen fights?
Did you remember it was on?
I did, aye. See, the UFC is easy, right? Because it's like, nearly every week there's a FC on. What did I say? FC? A UFC?
UFC, aye.
Aye.
To be fair, these days there's an FC on.
Aye.
These fights happening somewhere.
Fight club. Yeah.
Bring the first row there, Harvey.
Right. I will fire through the results from the bottom to the top, and if anything jumps out, holler. Right, so starting on the undercard, we had Vanessa Demopoulos defeating Jinyu Frey via split decision. We had Mario Bautista defeating Brian Kelleher via submission. It was a real naked choke in round 1. We had Cody Durden defeating JP Baez via TKO in round 1. We had Sergey Morozov defeating Rulian Baiva via unanimous decision. We had Shaylin Nuruddin Biyake defeating TJ Brown via unanimous decision. That was actually a really fun fight. Carlos Ulberg defeating Tafon Nchukwi even. Via TKO strikes, round one. That was a good one.
Aye.
That was a big one for Ulberg.
The start. Ulberg is what's his? Oh my god, the Stylebender's.
Aye, that's right. He's a training partner. He's a training partner of. Is he? What's his name? Israel Adesanya.
Olympia boy, man, 6'4".
He's a big lad. He's a guy that had a lot of sort of buzz about him. Potential coming into UFC, the big win on Dana White's Contender Series, got him into the UFC, and then he had a rough start, lost a fight or two when he started in the UFC. But
only one.
The interesting thing coming into this fight, right, was that Carlos Ulberg had all the potential in the world, all the physical tools. He's fast and explosive. Technically very good striker. I believe he's a kickboxer. He trained. That was what he did before MMA. He's fairly new, fairly young in MMA. So it was all about very high ceiling for him. Let's see where he can go. Give him a bit of time. And then you had Tafon Nchukwi, who again he came for the Contender Series as well, but he had a stronger start when he came into UFC. He's a guy that's very thick. He's shorter. He's 6 foot, but he is thick with about 9 C's. The guy is bolt, right? And he's all power, like reasonable boxing technique, but he basically wades forward. Like imagine early days of Francis Ngannou, like technique, fairly down, no many bars in his technique side of things, but he's like 100 in power. You know what I mean? So it's all strength and power. So the thought in this fight was if Ulberg can stay in the outside, use his speed, use his technique, he can get past Nchukwi. Key to win for Nchukwi: get inside, bully him, flatten him with his strength and power. However, what happened was Nchukwi marched forward and tried to get inside, and Ulberg just smashed Nchukwi with like a long left hook. And
did you see it?
Had him staggering back and then charged at him and floored him.
It was like he was just walking and hit a wall, do you know when somebody hits a glass door that they don't know is there?
And he's trying to start falling back.
That's what it looked like.
Smash into the glass door.
That's what it looked like.
Actually, sidebar, I did that. I don't know if you saw that on the Harvey, but see, one time when we were still at school and we went on holiday to the Cayman Islands, we were staying. I think it was like your auntie's or something.
Aye.
And she had like big glass kind of patio doors.
Yes,
and I walked into them one day. That must have been like the sun was shining through or something. I didn't realise the door was closed. I went straight into it. Yeah, bloody hurts, man. And the embarrassment hurts as well.
The embarrassment.
That's what hurts the most.
My ego was bruised for weeks. Right. So a big win for Ulberg. And as I say, it was like it's no how it was expected to go effectively. Anyway, so that capped off the undercard. Moving on to the main card, Chris Curtis picked up a win over Rodolfo Vieira via unanimous decision. That was a pretty fun fight. Vieira is a jiu-jitsu guy, long time jiu-jitsu guy. Renowned in the world of
mixed night from that. Like he was 0 and 10 for takedowns, but he was 2 for 2 in bollock kicks.
Well, the second one.
Oh, the second one, they reviewed that quickly. That made me
old. Aye. That was like it was right above the belt line with the sort of toes. So it was like a teep.
Oh, aye.
Like allegedly, kind of grazed the cup on the way in and. There was a wee moment there where it was
the second one looked worse than the first one. When they showed it at first I went, oh, he's punted him clean in the nuts. And then obviously as slow as it down and maybe not quite, but no good night for him really, was it?
So the story of the fight there was that Vieira wanted and needed the fight on the ground, and Chris Curtis basically just went in with the mindset of, you're not taking me down.
Aye. Very comfortably, wasn't it? Really.
The scorecard, I suppose, it's a unanimous decision, but 29-28 across the board. So, 2-1 in terms of rounds. That almost doesn't do Vieira justice. Like, Vieira was the aggressor, you know what I mean? He wasn't landing particularly clean strikes a lot of the time, but he was landing strikes. He was trying his best to get takedowns. Curtis was basically just on the outside, pick off shots when he can and avoid the takedown. That was like the game plan. So it's not as if like he gave Vieira an absolute bleaching or anything, but nevertheless, he did enough to win.
Sensibly, wasn't it? Sensible kind of style of fight.
Very much so.
Did you catch the patter for the first round in the corner for Curtis's corner, man? Saying he's not your friend, stop fucking high-fiving him.
Aye, that's quite funny.
The cornerman gets stuck straight in him, stop high-five him, be his friend after the fight, you're fighting him.
Aye. It's like he's your mortal enemy.
Aye. Yeah, you try to psych him up, proper.
So then we had Umar Magomedov picking up a big win over Nathan Maness. Unanimous decision for Magomedov, and I feel like Magomedov wasn't going 100% in that fight.
Felt like he didn't need to, did he? Really? It was
I feel like he was in cruise control there. The scorecards read 30-27, 30-26 and 30-25.
I'm genuinely not surprised. It was so dominant though.
Aye. Massively dominant.
It was the
fight.
Body language of Manez when he was getting up between rounds. He just looked... He wanted to be anywhere else but in there.
Right.
He just drained the fucking fun out of him. Like, just so typical, like, of one of the Dagestani boys.
Aye. It was fought very much like some of the fights in the early UFC career of Khabib, where it was just take the guy down, maintain top position, constantly moving but not taking any risks, and just drain the will to live out the opponent. Like, there was no big risks, there was no go for the mount, posture up, try and strike. Like, it was just maintain side control or half guard, like moving about, striking when possible, but never really threatening with like fight ending sequences or submissions or anything. It was just all like positional. It was drowning him.
It was. He just dragged him into deep water, basically, and tried to squeeze the life out of him. Man, it was brutal.
Aye. I would love to see Nurmagomedov go all out. Like, do that for 2 rounds and then third round, go for it. Try and finish him. I think that would... I mean, maybe he's not in a hurry. Certainly in his post-fight interview, it didn't seem like he was like desperate to call out the champ and go for a title shot or anything. He's quite happy just to keep winning fights and moving himself up. But I would like to see him show a bit of aggression, try and stop his opponents. And I think, I mean, maybe he doesn't care, right? But if he had ambitions of sort of going beyond Khabib before all is said and done for him, then the way to do that would be to string together finishes, like finish after finish. Look every bit as impressive as Khabib did, but consistently be stopping people with strikes or submitting them. Do that for 10 fights in a row. Conceivably, he goes down as a better fighter than Khabib.
I think, though, from his point of view, he would argue why should have, because Khabib will be remembered as a legend. So why go beyond that? I mean, if he does it the exact same way as Khabib, he's still going to be seen as one of the best ever. Like, even though arguably it's brutal to watch, and certainly that fight there was, you were like, oh, get up! Like, that's what I felt like watching it. Like, because you could just see the energy just sap out of the guy. Like, and I mean, obviously, Nurmagomedov in the third round, he starts to show a wee bit of flair with his high kicks. Like, I mean, he's got some very educated feet for a man that's kind of all about his wrestling. Some of his high kicks were beautiful, man. Like, you could see he was starting to enjoy himself a wee bit, but like you say, he was never ever risking anything. Like, he just did what he needed to.
Yeah, absolutely. So that, I mean, that's on him. Like, if he's happy being known as good as Khabib, then carry on as you are and follow that blueprint. It's obviously going to serve him well. You know what I mean? If he can replicate that, then he's going to be a world champion and a very rich man. So, power to him. Next up, we had Thiago Moises defeating Christos Jagos via a submission, a rear naked choke in round 1. Pretty impressive for Moises. Never seemed to be massively out of depth or in any didn't necessarily walk through him, but a good performance for him.
Easy
then we had,
submission.
Sorry?
It was an easy submission.
Mm-hmm.
Jumped up on his back, man.
Actually, worth noting that it was effectively a one-arm rear naked choke, which is pretty rare. He did sort of wrap his left arm around and kind of half grip, but that was more like protecting his arm from getting pulled away than it was really adding much to the choke.
I didn't really put the crank on with his other hand, did he? Like, it was all done by one.
Yep. So I give him his dues on that. Impressive finish once he got in the position. And I mean, basically, he just had Jagos kind of pinned against the cage and then he just jumped on the back. So next we had the heavyweights, the lone heavyweight fight on the card. We had Josh Parisian defeating Alan Boudreaux. So it was a decent finish for Josh Parisian. As much as I think Alan Boudreaux might have been able to put up maybe a fight if his fitness was a bit better rather than just turtling up and taking the punishment. It was nevertheless a good win for Parisian. Right, co-main event, we had Shavkat Rakhmonov defeating Neil Magny. Now, I spoke last week about how that was a massive test for Rakhmonov and I was excited to see that, and Rakhmonov lived up to it, man. He handled Neil Magny, and Neil Magny is not an easy guy to beat. Neil Magny at this point is a wily veteran and he has a very high skill level, very high fight IQ, and Rakhmonov, like, it was just a matter of time before he was going to finish him. He was dominant.
That was very, very easy.
Ultimately ended it with a guillotine choke.
He tapped with 3 seconds left on the clock.
The official time seems to be 4:58, man. 2 seconds to go.
All right.
Aye, but I mean,
2 seconds.
Same difference, man. I feel like if Magny was in a position where he could see the big screen and see the timer, he would have held it. But he would have run the risk of like going unconscious before the end of the round, in which case the referee would be within his rights to stop the fight. So very impressive performance for Shavkat Rakhmonov, man. Very impressive. Striking wise, like, just didn't look in trouble at all against Magny. And Magny's a phenomenal grappler, and Rakhmonov, like, just did what he wanted with him. So, aye, really impressive. Main event, Mateusz Gamrot defeating Arman Taksurian. That was a fun fight. I don't know if you've watched it in its entirety, but that was one hell of a fun fight.
I think I seen after, was it, I think Habib after the fight was congratulating and saying, I want another 5 rounds of that. Something to that.
Okay.
The words to those effect. What's your
aye. So I mean, it was a pretty close fight ultimately, 48-47 across the board. There wasn't too much in it. There was a lot of, especially in the first sort of 3 rounds, there was a lot of wrestling, but it was fast chain wrestling. It was like really fun to watch, like high level stuff. It wasn't like when you, like, if you imagine, if you told somebody like, oh, it was a 5 rounder and there was a lot of wrestling, usually you would think, oh Christ, that could have been fun. But like this, I mean, this got fight of the night and it deserved it. It was 5 rounds of action. Even if the action wasn't always striking, it was action. It was non-stop. So a bit of a shame for Arman Taksurian. Like, he'd been on a really good run. But Gamrot, I think, was deserved in getting the win.
I feel like that's the last time to me, yeah.
No, I can see them. I can see them fighting again.
Way up the division, like as top contenders. Like I feel like that's what we were looking at was the future, as opposed to like obviously these Vegas cards aren't as big a deal, but this feels like it's getting an arena audience one day.
I can see them pushing on. Well, certainly Gabner, obviously with the win, they're pushing on towards the title, but the two of them are going to be moving up, man. They're both very good. They were main eventing for a reason. They're maybe not like superstars in terms of names, but like they are world class, man. Wrestling especially. The striking was good, competitive, but the wrestling, the level of wrestling, grappling that they had was next level, man. It was phenomenal. Really good to watch, really fun. Outside of them getting the fight of the night, in terms of other bonuses, they went back to their usual their performance bonuses. Obviously, a lot less finishes on this card, so I can see why they didn't go with everybody that finished gets a bonus kind of thing, but I feel like they should do that. Anyway, so the bonus winners were Shavkat Rakhmonov, Josh Parisian, and Thiago Moises. Good to see Rakhmonov and Moises getting bonuses there for their finishes, because we're both like really good, high level, and two of them are like really promising talents. Anything else to say on there to cover? Questions, concerns?
I mean, obviously not as exciting as last week with the mad amount of knockouts, but still a lot of high quality fighting to be seen, especially in that main event.
Aye, it was really good. I really enjoyed that, I have to say. Harvey looking keep stum. Yeah, nothing to say on it.
No, it's just it was a decent night. It was a decent night of fights. Aye.
Okay. Right, let's look ahead to next week quickly. We've got PFL 6 on July 1st. Main event is Kayla Harrison versus Caitlin Young. That was supposed to be... what was her name? Don't remember. Let me go back to the PFL doodad. Julia Budd, that's who it was. It was supposed to be Kayla Harrison versus Julia Budd, but Julia Budd picked up an injury. It is Caitlin Young that's stepping in to replace her. So that is the main event. To run through the card, on the undercard, we've got Helena Kolesnik versus Vanessa Mello, Martina Jindrova versus Zamzagul Fayazalanova, Marina Moknatikina versus Abigail Montez, Nikolai Alexikin versus Gleison Tebow, Larissa Pacheco versus Jenna Fabian, Jarrah Hussein Al-Salawi versus Magomed Umalatov. And then main card, we've got Magomed Magomedkerimov versus Yao Zeffirino. Ray Cooper III versus Brett Cooper. And no, I don't think they're related. Rory McDonald versus Sadibou Sai, and Kayla Harrison versus Caitlin Young in the main event, as mentioned. No doubt some fun fights on there. Also some awesome names. Moving on. UFC 276 on July 2nd. So Saturday night next week for us. Coming at you live in colour from the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. We've got a double headliner here. Main event is Israel Adesanya versus Jared defending his middleweight title, and the co-main event is Israel Adesanya's teammate and fellow Australasian and Alexander Volkanovski, who is defending his featherweight title for the third time. Well, actually, no, that's a lie. Defending it for the second time against Max Holloway. The first time's when he'll win the title. But trilogy fight with Max Holloway. Running through the card for the bottom, we've got Jessica Rose Clark versus Julia Stoliarenko. We've got Dracus Duplessis versus Brad Tavares. We've got Uriah Hall versus Andre Muniz. We have Jim Miller versus Donald Cerrone. So it was supposed to be Jim Miller versus Bobby Green. Bobby Green picked up an injury. Donald Cowboy Cerrone, as soon as he's had 2 fights cancelled, decided he was up for it, and he stepped in. Donald Cowboy Cerrone versus Jim Miller is a fantastic fight. So very happy.
That's a really good matchup.
Very happy with that.
Experienced men.
Yep. We've got Ian Gary versus Gabe Green. We've got Macy Barber versus Jessica Ai. We've got on the undercard at the moment, based on how it's laid out, Robbie Lawler versus Brian Barberena. Then we've got Brad Riddell versus Jalen Turner. So far, a very stacked card already. Main card as it stands, Pedro Munoz versus Sean O'Malley. Sugar Sean in the house. Sean Strickland versus Alex Pereira. Fucking amazing fight. Alexander Volkanovski, Max Holloway, and Israel Adesanya, as already discussed. Now, worth noting, Misha Tate versus Lauren Murphy was supposed to be on the main card. Lauren Murphy's allegedly picked up an injury. It's undisclosed at this time what the issue is, but that fight is off. Misha Tate at this moment in time is electing to hold off for that fight to be rebooked, so will not feature on the card. So I think Robbie Lawler versus Brian Barberena is the obvious choice to bump up to the main card.
Hey, Barberena.
However, I wouldn't be shocked if they went with Ian Gary. Fucking reading the wrong line. I wouldn't be shocked if they went with Jim Miller versus Donald Cerrone to open the main card.
Aye, that would be a cracking one.
But this would be the first time in over 20 years, I believe, that Robbie Lawler has been on a UFC card but not on the main card. Fucking wild, man. That's mental.
Nah, that's pretty nuts, by the
way. So I don't know what fight they'll go with, but at this moment in time, it's listed as 4 fights on the main card. I'd imagine they'll even that out and they'll go with 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, bugger. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there's 8 cards listed for the undercard, and then 4 for the main card. I reckon they'll bump one of the fights up. I just don't know what one. But one hell of a night. I'm thinking Robbie Lawler, Brian Barberena might just be fight of the night there. If you're looking for a pick, but it could also be Jim Miller versus Donald Cerrone, and it could also be Sean Strickland versus Alex Pereira, and it could also be Pedro Munoz versus Sean O'Malley, and it could also be Alexander Volkanovski versus Max Holloway. The card is that stacked.
And Gary's fond of a wee finish as well, by the way.
Indeed. Aye.
So it's that is some that is going to be some weekend. I may actually watch the undercard.
Well, if that's not a compliment, I don't know what is.
Sweet Jesus.
Well played, UFC. Main card Paul is considering watching the undercard. What do you think it? Oh, God. Right, any final thoughts, lads?
Absolutely nothing, my man.
Harvey's looking at the camera with a blank expression on his face.
No, I was shaking my head, sorry. Did you not see me shaking my head? No. Well, I was tempted to say something. Oh, that's right. I'll give you a dad joke. Last bit.
Well,
how do you tell the difference between an alligator and a crocodile? You'll see one later and one in a while.
Yes. Right, I've got a deck of cards with dad jokes on them, right? So since you brought up the subject...
Oh, Lord. That's awesome.
I am cutting the cards. We have a random dad joke. It is, how long does a jousting tournament last? Until nightfall.
Yes.
Beauty. Oh, that's awesome.
Right, well, on that note, tune in next week for more nonsense and dad jokes and blank expressions for Harvey. I'm sure you can wait. We can. So if you have been, thank you for listening. My name's, of course, Mick. They have been Harvey and Paul, as always, and will still be Harvey and Paul next week, I'm sure. Unless one of them's planning to change their name and having to tell me that. In which case, it might be Mick, Harvey, and James, or Patricia. I don't know. Change my driver. Bye, driver. Bye, driver.